I think so it's D.
So that's one of them. So it would be D, C, and B. It would be everybody. Everybody would be aimed at for the social environmental report. So then, like at the end, we'll do the assignment 2 in class presentations. So what is investment? So investment is the commitment of capital for benefits received in the future in terms of income flow or capital gain, or both.
I think so they're both.
Yes, yeah. So if you own a stock, you can get dividends and capital gains. So specifically with banks, if you own BMO, you'll get a dividend of like 5% of the share, and then it'll go up by a lot in capital gains. So you get both, which is great. The dividend is great because it's cash for you, and then the capital gain, you can't cash out of it unless you sell the stock. But with dividends, you can get cash out of it. So in economic theory, investment utilizes capital for maximum possible return. So socially responsible investment, all investment is socially responsible. And SRI is investing that shows the impact on the environment. And this includes community investing, ethical investing, green investing, impact investing, mission-related investing, responsible investing, and many others. And then there's no necessarily single view of what is ethical. So we'll just do it here because not enough people lecture. So what can be considered socially responsible investment for businesses? And what might you exclude from SRI? So I'll ask you here. Does anyone have any ideas? So it can be in, let's say, solar power, renewable energy, that would work, as well investing in supports for the community in terms of the food bank, that may be socially responsible. Anything that would support the society, environment as a whole. And does anyone else have any ideas of what would support the society? It's okay, if you think of any, we'll just jump in and say it while we're going. So SRI can be analyzed according to many criteria, and it covers a wide range of investment strategies. So they include the ethical aspects of negative screening, i.e. the exclusion of sin stocks such as alcohol, gambling, tobacco, weapons, pornography, and indeed pork. So then second is the wide scale integration of ESG criteria into investment. And then socially responsible investing goes more than that ESG. So it gets rid of investments based on ethical guidelines. So there are negative and positive screens in investment. So I'll show you this article on ESG and SRI. And just so it's not investment's not just returns. People are looking for, so yeah, recycling would be that could factor into if you invest in recycling. That's good on a socially responsible basis. So that's a good idea. Yeah, recycling or any sort of waste disposal. And investment is now focused on positive impacts in the world. And socially responsible investing is responsible for about 33% of investment in the United States in 2020. So about 17 billion of its assets under management. That's an increase of 42% from 2018. So that includes impact investing, environmental, social, and governance, socially responsible investing. So investors want to put their money towards stocks and funds that have social value similar to them. And environmental, social, and governance, social responsible investing, impact investing do all this. And then socially responsible investing removes or chooses investment based on ethical guidelines, and impact investing looks at how to help a business organization complete a project. And ESG, it focuses on improving the society, governance, or environment. So like it focuses on energy consumption, human rights, quality of management, pollution. So environmental will be energy consumption, pollution, climate change, waste production, animal welfare. Social will be human rights, child and forced labor, community engagement, health and safety, stakeholder returns, employee relations. And then for governance would be like corruption, conflict of interest, executive compensation, transparency, and disclosure. And then SRI is focused on eliminating investments based on ethical guidelines. So that includes eliminating gambling, alcohol, tobacco, production of weapons, terrorism affiliations, human rights and labor violations, environmental damage. So impact investing is focused on positive impacts in some sort of way. So they're very important these days on investing. You need to be focused on the society as a whole instead of just making money. So yeah. So watch this video.
ESG is important because if you're not looking at ESG factors, non-financial factors, you're missing half the picture.
I would say that 10 or 15 years ago, most people were skeptical that these non-financial factors might have an impact on share prices or bonds. And what people have begun to realize is just how important these factors are.
When it comes to investing, not everything that counts can be counted. So things like culture, human capital, innovation, organizational health, speed of decision making, these are all critical aspects of the long-term viable success of the business. And yet you will not see any of that within traditional financial reporting.
We want to make sure that in every security that we look at, in every portfolio we manage, that we're, in addition to the traditional financial metrics, considering all aspects, environmental and social and governance within that analysis. However you do that, it produces the outcomes that we require.
We are looking at ESG more explicitly these days because ESG factors are increasingly important to the market. You've got growing environmental issues, problems like climate change, which are increasingly being presented as potentially systemic financial risks. They will impact financial markets. You've got growing social issues actually associated with the climate change, about migration, that will have big social economic implications.
ESG is important to what we do. It's not just a fiduciary duty. For us, it also makes sense. So for companies that actually focus on ESG factors, they tend to have much higher and more sustainable returns.
We're active owners, we're not activists. And so when we think about active ownership and engagement, what we're often trying to do is just trying to make a slight improvement to a business that we already think has got very, very strong credentials.
The engagement or dialogue we have with companies tends to be sort of based around sort of two areas. It's either engagement for insight, you actually want to better understand the business so you can better evaluate the risks. But there's also sort of engagement to facilitate change.
So there's a big debate amongst investors over the power of divestment and engagement. The problem with divesting is you lose the power to influence companies.
Once we become owners, then we believe strongly that owners have responsibilities. And we have a responsibility to continue to engage with this business, to make sure that the business is adequately dealing with the new challenges that are coming up, to improve disclosure, to change their practices, whether those are environmental practices, social practices.
We have a variety of tools and resources that are embedded in the investment philosophy and processes across the investment teams. We report to real gold standards like the UN PRI system, or you can see that through the reporting that we do at the top of the house through our responsible investment guide.
It's really important for us that we're aligned with RBC's values, that we are supporting the purpose for which RBC sets it out for itself.
When I think about being a purpose-driven organization, I think about RBC's purpose of helping clients thrive and communities prosper. ESG is a big part of that. We do things for short-term gain without thinking about long-term consequences. We are not living up to our purpose. I see ESG as an integral part of living up to RBC's purpose.
So the principles for responsible investment were created by institutional investors, and it has been focused on how important environmental, social, and corporate governance issues have been to investing. And principle number one, we're going to incorporate environmental, social, and governance into investment analysis and decision-making processes. We're going to be active owners and incorporate ESG issues into our ownership policies. We're going to disclose ESG issues. We're going to promote accepting, managing these principles in investments. We're going to work together in order to implement these principles at the best of our ability. And then we're going to report on activities and progress through implementing the principles. So SRI data, it can be available at Thomson Reuters or Bloomberg. They both have these financial trading and information systems. I've used Bloomberg's, it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of information. And there's a lot of information that Thomson Reuters, they did that, they made theirs to compete with Bloomberg. But they have ESG's data on companies from over 4,300 companies. And there's about 280 key performance indicators. And for at least 3 years for each company. And then Bloomberg has a lot of ESG data. They have obtained data on greenhouse gas intensity per sales, water usage, employee facilities, toxic discharge, and more than 100 other indicators, disclosed by over 10,000 companies in 52 countries. And Bloomberg has said that per year, there's been an increase in the use of ESG data by 47.7%. And this has grown from 2,415 in 2009 to 7,279 in 2012. So there's a lot of SRI indexes. MSCI has many. So there's the MSCI Global Sustainability Index, and this is focused on investors that want to invest in companies with strong sustainability profiles. And it includes MSCI, ACWI, ESG Index, MSCI World ESG Index, and MSCI EM ESG Index. So I'm going to bring up this. So there's a lot of them. Like they're made to represent the performance of ESG investment approaches. So it shows how well companies on a whole do while following environmental, social, and governance performance indicators. So if companies are environmentally friendly, society focused, and have good governance in terms of ethics, this is how they do on a stock market basis. If you follow these indexes, so this is the timeline on the MSCI indexes. And then the indexes, there's many of them, but yeah, there's a lot of them here. We're just gonna watch a video on the MSCI indexes. I'm just gonna.
MSCI's webinar covering the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes. Over the next 10 minutes, we will provide an overview of these indexes and why they are useful tools for global investors focused on low carbon investing. We will begin the presentation by providing a brief background on why investors are increasingly focused on low carbon investing. Next, we will provide an overview of the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes and how they achieve the needs of the growing group of investors focused on lowering carbon exposure. We will then examine performance and index characteristics by honing in on one low carbon target index in particular, the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index. Finally, we will conclude by summarizing the key advantages of the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes. But first, I will pause a moment here just to say a few quick words about MSCI's global equity indexes in general. Calculated since 1969, the MSCI Global Equity Indexes have become integral tools in the investment processes of global investors. MSCI indexes provide exhaustive equity market coverage across 75 countries in the developed, emerging, and frontier markets. In addition, MSCI has been a leader in index innovation and research. One of the advantages of the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes is that they leverage MSCI's industry-leading capabilities in global indexing and are leading environmental, social, and governance research. With respect to environmental, social, and governance research, it is worth mentioning that MSCI has over 40 years of experience. Relating to low carbon specifically, our in-house ESG research team provides clients with robust data and research, enabling investors to better understand and measure their carbon risks. This leading research and data is applied to the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes. Our ESG team has over 120 analysts worldwide, servicing over 800 clients with 15 trillion in assets, and our data coverage extends over 9,000 global issuers. With that, we will now turn our focus to the growing market theme of low carbon investing. So why is low carbon investing a growing topic? Why are investors seeking to reduce carbon exposure? The answer? There is a growing realization that the assets of many companies, whether they be fossil fuel reserves, power plants, or factories, are expected to produce carbon emissions in excess of the carbon budget that many recognize is needed to be maintained in order to avoid transformational climate change. The recent Global Accord from Copenhagen, which was drafted by the United States and several other nations, recognized the scientific view that the global rise in surface temperature should be less than 2 degrees Celsius to prevent climate change. To maintain such a limit would mean constraining fossil fuel consumption to well below the fossil fuel industry's reserves. If such a constraint plays out, this essentially means fossil fuel companies would not be able to profit from a significant portion of their reserve assets, in which they have already invested heavily. Put another way, these reserve assets would become stranded assets and could lose their economic value well ahead of previous expectations. The issue of stranded assets goes well beyond fossil fuel reserves. Any asset that generates greenhouse gas emissions could be susceptible to losing economic value ahead of its expected life because of changes in regulation, market forces, environmental concerns, societal norms, and innovation associated with the transition to a low-carbon economy. Indeed, for these reasons, investors are becoming increasingly concerned about the long-term carbon risk of assets in individual companies, and are seeking solutions to address this risk. It is interesting to note, however, that carbon risk is concentrated in only a few sectors. That said, carbon risk does indeed exist outside of the more typical carbon-intensive industries, and therefore all industries must be examined in order to fully address it. With the increasing focus on carbon risk in mind, MSCI has developed a new global index family designed to reflect a lower carbon exposure than that of the broad market, the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes. These indexes seek to reduce carbon exposure along two key dimensions: fossil fuel reserves and carbon emissions. The key objectives are to reduce carbon footprint relative to the parent broad market index and reduce carbon exposure to energy-related assets most vulnerable to stranding, while also minimizing tracking error relative to the parent broad market index. The indexes are also designed to hold country and sector exposures similar to those of the parent index. In other words, the indexes seek to reduce the carbon exposure while keeping many other characteristics relatively close to that of the parent index. This process relies heavily on MSCI's in-house quantitative tools and expertise, including our Barra Optimizer and risk models. Now let's talk in a little bit more detail about the two dimensions of carbon risk that the low carbon target indexes seek to reduce: carbon emissions and fossil fuel reserves. For carbon emissions, the MSCI ESG research team collects company-specific direct, Scope 1, and indirect, Scope 2, greenhouse gas emissions data from company public documents and the CDP, formerly the Carbon Disclosure Project. Data is collected annually and is normalized by dividing each company's emissions by the annual sales of each company. This parameter is relevant because it helps identify long-lived assets most vulnerable to stranding and also measures a company's absolute contribution to climate change. Turning now to fossil fuel reserves data, MSCI collects data on oil, gas, and coal reserves in the ground, unextracted from the earth but on the balance sheets of companies. For the development of the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes, only fossil fuel reserves used for energy production are taken into account. The data is updated on an annual basis and based on information disclosed by companies. Since the size of the reserves of a company typically influences its market valuation, MSCI normalizes for size by dividing the potential carbon emissions of the company by its market capitalization. This parameter is relevant as it seeks to capture reserve types most vulnerable to stranding, is forward-looking, and is a proxy for a company's potential contribution to future global emissions. Looking in more detail at the methodology, we can see that while minimizing for carbon exposure along these two key dimensions, emissions and reserves, the index also constrains tracking error to a target of 30 basis points and holds sector and country weights in check. With the exception of energy, all other sectors are held to plus or minus 2% of their weight in the parent broad market index. In addition, country weights are also held to plus or minus 2% of their weights in the parent broad market index. The end result of this index methodology is a low carbon index designed to track closely and remain similar to its parent index across many key dimensions. Let's now take a look at performance and see if the index methodology indeed reduces carbon exposure while keeping other index characteristics close to that of the parent broad market index. To do this, let's take a look at one index within the Low Carbon Target Index family, the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index. This particular index is based on MSCI's flagship global benchmark, the MSCI ACWI, and reflects lower carbon exposure across 23 developed and 23 emerging markets. Looking simply at the simulated performance chart above, we can see that the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index has tracked closely to its parent index, the MSCI ACWI, since November 2010. Over this period, the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index slightly outperformed its parent index, 10.4% versus 10%. Looking at additional statistics, we can also see that the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index has exhibited similar risk and a slightly higher Sharpe ratio. Certain valuation ratios, such as price to book, price to earnings, and dividend yield, are also all similar to that of the parent benchmark. In comparing sector weights and country weights, we can see that the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index again exhibits similar characteristics to that of its parent index. Indeed, based on performance, risk, and composition, it could be argued that the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index provides a fair representation of the broad market across many aspects. Except for, of course, carbon exposure. Once we look under the hood of this representative index, we see the impact of MSCI's Low Carbon Target Index methodology. The level of current CO2 emissions and future CO2 emissions from reserves produced from the constituents of the MSCI ACWI Low Carbon Target Index is drastically lower than that of its parent index. In addition, taking a look at the security level, we can see MSCI's Low Carbon Target Index methodology at work, as it drastically underweights heavy carbon producing companies relative to their weight in the parent index. For instance, ExxonMobil Corp, which has carbon emissions in the top 1% of the MSCI ACWI stock universe, is underweighted by 93 basis points, and 87% underweight. In closing, today we presented the MSCI Global Low Carbon Target Indexes. These indexes demonstrate many benefits as a tool for investors focused on low carbon investing and risk. The indexes are designed to reduce carbon footprint compared to that of the parent broad market index across two key dimensions, reserves and emissions. In addition, they represent an innovative approach designed to reduce carbon exposure with low tracking error by re-weighting securities in the index. It's worth noting that the indexes are also designed to maintain similar industry and country composition to that of the parent broad market index. Finally, the indexes help investors manage two dimensions of carbon risk: long-term risk by underweighting energy-related assets most vulnerable to stranding, and short-term risk by aiming to minimize tracking error relative to the parent broad market index. We hope you have found today's presentation beneficial. Thank you.
So yeah, that was a good video on MSCI. They for oil companies, the weights of the oil companies in the index are a lot lower than they usually are in other indexes, which is good. So they weight the green energy companies higher. So yeah, there's a lot of the MSCI Global Sustainability Index, MSCI Global SRI indexes. So it puts together companies with the highest ESG ratings and excludes companies in alcohol, tobacco, gambling, civilian firearms, military weapons, nuclear power, adult entertainment, and genetically modified organisms, GMOs, reconstituted annually. So with this, there can be, so I'm going to bring it up, they might be good ideas for your assignment number 3. I'll bring it up here. So the companies in these indexes might be good companies for your assignment number 3. So yeah, like if you look up companies in the index, so I'm just gonna pull that up. Give me 1 second. So the companies in the index will bring up. So yeah, these companies will show you. So for the MSCI, they have Apple, Microsoft Corp, Amazon, Alphabet, Tesla, Facebook, Nvidia, JP Morgan, and United Health Group as the top 10 parts of the MSCI World Index. So yeah, like those companies do not create pollution for the most part, so it makes sense. Tesla is the most environmentally friendly company in the world, in my opinion. So that makes sense that they would be included in the index. So that's a snapshot of what they have. And then the MSCI Global X Controversial Weapons Indexes, they take out the investments in weapons and bombs and etc. And then at global environmental indexes, it goes for fossil fuels exclusion, low carbon and thematic indexes. And then the custom MSCI ESG indexes, they have the ESG criteria specified by clients for developed economies. So since we are smaller groups today, so if you review the MSCI indexes, what are some facts that you learn and what do they tell and what are your thoughts? So I'll put these in the chat so you can pick any of them. So visit the MSCI. So visit these websites and then tell me what you think about these indexes and what you what your views are on these indexes. I'm just gonna take this. Show you the other question. So yeah, then talk about interesting facts you see about the index and what does it tell and what are your thoughts. So review those websites and let me know what you think in terms of what you see. And you can review it, and you can review it while I'll keep going. But if you have anything to add about it, feel free to unmute or stay in the chat while I keep going. So another leading initiative is the GRI. So there's a lot of key indicators that are talking about week 4 and week 9. So SRI is similar to social return on investment. Social return on investment is a method for measuring values that are not included, including social, economic, and environmental factors. So from bottom line. And So we'll watch this video on this.
There's ongoing buzz and debate about how to measure the social and environmental benefits of organizations. Yet, there are common questions about this process, including how do we calculate the social benefits, and which inputs and outcomes should be included in the analysis. To explain how an organization could measure their impact, let's look at Tutoring for Tomorrow, an after-school program for at-risk youth, and discuss the process it might go through to develop a social return on investment, or SROI analysis. The organization knows its goals are to provide students with support to build confidence, improve grades, and encourage their enrollment in college or university, but does not know whether these goals are achieved. To begin this process, Tutoring for Tomorrow creates an impact map. Stakeholders are identified, in this case, teachers and students, and the organization connects with the stakeholders to discuss the key activities and outcomes of Tutoring for Tomorrow. Once these items are identified, indicators are developed, which are used to measure the social impact created. These indicators explain the changes for students, but a question remains: how much of this change was caused by Tutoring for Tomorrow? To factor this out, adjustments are applied to isolate the impact of the organization. For example, the average graduation rates for youth at risk can be used as a baseline to determine how the students would have performed if they were not involved with the program. Since the SROI analysis compares the benefits of a program to its costs, the outcomes, where appropriate, need to be expressed in monetary terms. In this case, Tutoring for Tomorrow can attribute an increase in graduation rates into long-term public and private cost savings. Once this framework is developed, data regarding the costs and outcomes of the program are gathered from a variety of sources. This data is fed into an online system to calculate the social return on investment. To calculate this return, the SROI ratio compares the benefits and costs of the program. While this ratio is important, many outcomes cannot be monetized. So, when reporting on the findings, it is important for Tutoring for Tomorrow to highlight the ratio and also the results of the non-monetized outcomes. The ratio must be considered in the context of each unique organization. Once the framework is developed, Tutoring for Tomorrow can use it year after year and refine it as the program evolves. There are substantial benefits to developing an impact measurement system. For example, the new framework will help Tutoring for Tomorrow identify successes and gaps in programming, make adjustments to improve services, and generate reports to explain the value of their work to funders, investors, and boards. Tutoring for Tomorrow can now say that for every dollar they invest in their programs, they generate a $1.98 return for the surrounding community. The benefits of developing an impact measurement system are far-reaching. Most importantly, they strengthen programs like Tutoring for Tomorrow, and this helps to build healthier and stronger communities.
Yes, so there's a lot of returns to social investment, a lot of society returns, and it's not necessarily measured in dollar value usually. Like you don't get profit from it, like it's not a cash basis. They have to estimate the value to society. And that's important because something like public transit needs to be owned by the government because the social value is so much higher than the private value because there's so much positive externalities to having public transit. So the government has to keep it cheap, and then there's a lot of good value from it. The only way it works is through the government owning it, because if private companies owned it, they would increase the price a lot because to make money on consumers, to make a lot of profits, and they wouldn't care about the little guy, like low-income people not being able to afford transit. So the only way it works is if the government owns it, because the government will make it cheap through all their government spending, and that will ensure that everyone can use the transit instead of rich people. So you can do SRI to measure environmental and social outcomes and do table like this. So it's more for social environmental outcomes. Like you have to estimate the impact slash value. It's not a cash transfer. It's just an estimation. So SRI is an evolving trend. It's not. And then there. Companies and governments are aware of how ESG can cause problems with sustainable development and corporate performance. And companies involved in SRI in the 21st century involve corporations, universities, hospitals, foundations, insurance companies, pension funds, NGOs, and religious institutions. So SRI can penalize the poor because it actually benefits corporations because it's used as a marketing technique by corporations. And these corporations are making things a lot more expensive for low-income people. So it might actually make them stronger, and they'll be able to reduce competition and then keep increasing prices for low-income people. So that's a problem. The problem is it's used as a promotional technique instead of just a society improvement technique. And then it doesn't address inequality because capitalism, it allows for shareholders and owners to become rich and founders, while people who earn the wages, they don't make that much money. Really not any money at all. It really goes to the owners and the shareholders. And governance doesn't improve income or wealth distribution. And then it might worsen if shareholders are wealthier than managers and workers, which they are. Shareholders are always wealthier than managers and workers. And then SRI crowds out public sector, especially legislation. So they may take over doing it for the government, but it might be very high cost and too expensive for people to access. So it'd be better if the government did it instead of them, instead of the corporation, because the corporations only need to make money. Governments help to help people in certain tasks. But SRI, it can become more of a capitalist thing instead of helping people eventually, because they see how much money they're making and then their only focus is money again. And they're not focusing on helping society. So that might happen, which is probably what would happen. And then SRI might not be legally permissible because it may just be focused on profitability, not helping people. So SRI is controversial, but it's growing. And it has a lot of investment styles. SRI is a big part of CSR, and many critics suggest that it can help capitalists more than poor people. So these are the recommended things to do for next week. So I'm gonna let the next person share the screen. So Gagandeep Kaur, whenever you want to go, do you want to go first, Gagandeep?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Yeah, whenever you're ready. I just screen share whenever you're ready.
Mhm. I just want to make sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Oh, sorry. Hi everyone, I'm Gagandeep Kaur. I'm here to present my corporate social responsibility assignment on my chosen company, the Walt Disney. The Walt Disney Company is a leading diversified international family entertainment and media enterprise that include Disney parks, experiences, and products, Disney Media Entertainment Distribution, and three content groups. Studio General Entertainment and Sports focus on developing and producing content for DTC, theoretical and linear platform. Disney Company has physical presence in 30 countries, employing its channel reach children and families in 133 countries. In the year 2020, the Walt Disney Company generated a total revenue of $16.5 billion with its peak and resort segment, a decrease of around $10 billion from the year before. The company's biggest segment was its media platform, which generated revenue of $28.39 billion in 2020. This marks a significant increase from the $16.21 billion of revenue generated in this segment in 2009. The total asset of the Walt Disney Company amounted to $201.55 billion in 2020. The same year, the American Media Company generated global revenue of $65.39 million. Disney employed more than 2 lakh workers worldwide. With the release of the Star Wars: A New Hope in 1977, fans immediately began to embrace level. Philanthropy was very important to George Lucas. Beginning in 1977, he hosted screening of Star Wars to raise money for charity around the world, with a particular emphasis on children, healthcare, and education. Over the course of the last 4 decades, both Lucasfilm and Star Wars fans have kept this philanthropic spirit alive in the multitude of ways, including charitable grants and volunteering their time. The Star Wars focus for change aimed to create transformation and change in the lives of kids by helping to bridge a STEAM scale gap, utilizing the fun and intrigue of Star Wars storytelling to inspire innovation, help build confidence, and ignite curiosity. In doing so, Star Wars Force for Change hope to abandon and motivate the next generation of heroes and innovation, while also empowering the Star Wars fan community to use their fandom for good. In 2020, Disney, in collaboration with Lucasfilm, provide FIRST, the global robotic nonprofit, a $1.5 million grant to expand access to FIRST program with a focus on underserved and underrepresented youth. Their enterprise-wide collaboration with FIRST to inspire the next generation of storytellers and innovators is built upon a legacy that began more than 25 years ago with Disney Parks began supporting and mentoring FIRST team. Disney seek to be an engaged member of the global communities in which they operate. Their collaboration with local stakeholders and active employee volunteerism. Volunteerism is a control and enduring part of our community engagement efforts. For more than 35 years, their employee and cast members around the world have contributed over 12 million hours of serving, supporting the communities where they live and work. In 2012, Disney set a target of 5 million hours of serving by 2020 for their dedicated volunteers. And at the start of the calendar year, they were on the track to reach the surpass this goal. As a result of COVID-19 health and safety restrictions, however, they missed their goal by 24,000 hours. This team formed the inability of employees to serve their local communities in the hands-on, in-person ways they have done in the past, as well as the cancellation of their Global Impact Week of volunteer projects and hundreds of Disney organizations in person. Voluntary opportunity, they recognize Disney unique opportunity to provide emotional support for families both in and out of hospital. Disney invented in Transformation Youth program that provide access and opportunity to underserved and underrepresented youth. Disney Publishing donated more than 9 million books to organize serving kids in need, continuing their support of First Book and including a pledge of 1 million books to the Boys and Girls Club of America. Additionally, Disney provided nearly 27 million in-kind support in response to COVID-19, excluding PSA campaign. Disney approach to corporate social responsibility is built upon the company's long and enduring legacy of engagement in their workplace and communities and their action to protect the environment. Disney is committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission, minimizing waste, conserving water resources, and protecting the planet as they operate and grow their business. For example, in 2019, they brought online a new 270 acres, 50 megawatt solar facility at the Walt Disney World, built in collaboration with the Reed Creek Improvement District and Orgis Energy USA. The facility is anticipated to generate enough power from the sun to operate 2 of their 4 theme parks in Orlando annually. Disney Conservation is committed to saving wildlife and building a global community inspired to protect the magic of nature together. They also committed to respecting human rights, monitoring the safety and integrity of products, and reducing the environmental footprint of their supply chain. Disney is committed to creating positive, safe, fun, and inclusive environment experience that audience of all age can enjoy together. The company are committed to providing an annual account of their performance on environmental, social, and governance issue of internet to their stakeholders. Disney also value and encourage curiosity, innovation, and idea from everyone. The social responsibility highlight of Disney in charitable contribution in fiscal 2020 are 333.1 million. They have protected 315 million acres, also 321,700 hours volunteering in fiscal 2020. Disney International brand management strategy focus on improving brand loyalty, awareness, and identify. The company focuses on delivering its brand promises by providing high quality and unparalleled environment experience. This improves brand loyalty. Disney uses a cost plus pricing strategy to sell its export in the international market. This strategy takes into account the cost of producing and exporting a product to a given market. The major cultural focus that affect the competitiveness of Disney includes the value, religion belief, attitude, and customs that are held in high esteem in various countries. The company's international market communication efforts focus on creating brand awareness, which in turn increase sales in foreign market. Thank you.
Excellent, Gagandeep. Did you have references for your presentation?
Pardon?
Did you have references for your presentation?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, excellent. Could you bring that up again? Could you just bring up the reference page?
Sure.
Thank you. Great. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, great work. I really enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
And yeah, great use of references. And excellent detail, great research. I like the use of visual media, pictures. It was a really good presentation. Like, you worked really hard on it, so great work.
Thank you.
So great work, Gagandeep.
I can do the next, Professor, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Thank you for volunteering.
Just 1 second. I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, let me know if you need help. I can, if you can't bring it up, I can bring it up for you, and then just tell me when to switch slide. Just let me know.
Okay.
No
Yeah.
trouble.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So hi everyone, I am Thais Oliveira, and today I would like to show you my presentation for segment 2. So McDonald's is an American fast food company, also is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue, serving over 100 countries and having 38,695 restaurants according to the last survey in 2019. And there are around 30, sorry, Professor. Okay, again, McDonald's is an American fast food company, also is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue, serving over 100 countries and having 38,695 restaurants according to the last survey in 2019. And they sell products, some example, hamburger, chicken, French fries, soft drinks, soft serves, milkshake, salads, desserts, pancake, coffee, breakfast, and wraps. And they have around 10,000 employees. So for the corporate social responsibility, McDonald's take this very seriously. For example, water, for example, this process strategy, water stewardship. I choose this one because water is of the world's most precious resource, and for the restaurants, the water consumption is really high. So I found this strategy interesting idea to discuss. So the company recognized water as important sustainability issue area in the supply chain and restaurant. Because that, the strategy McDonald's save many liters of water around the world, such as in Switzerland. They are saving around 45 million liters annually. And this process, the Urimatry urinals with a special sponge and large scale float neutralize odors and save around many liters of water. Some impact about this initiative, the positive ones are: do not use water or chemicals, low installation and maintenance cost, simple hygiene, odor control, modern and eco-friendly design, and energy reduction. The bad things, it is about use acceptance, retrofit, and local approval. So for McDonald's, in the communities where they operate, they are working to conserve water and use it responsibly and efficiently. So because of that, McDonald's are getting good reputation, and employee motivation, creativity, intellectual capital, and learning are happened by a positive CSR strategy, and it helps to improve the relationship with the community and government. Yeah, there are my reference, and thanks so much.
Great work, Thais. Yeah, excellent job. All of the organization, the presentation. And
Sorry,
the call.
I'm always nervous to the presentations. I would like to say more things, but I don't know what happened. You know.
You did a great job. Like, don't worry. You did a great job. Like, I liked the use of the pictures you had. Like the colors, I like the colors. I liked the statistics you got. Very well researched. You know McDonald's through and through. And the corporate social responsibility initiative, you described it very comprehensively. And then talked about the pros and cons of the initiative and reviewed how it was. And then talked about why companies are socially responsible and like the benefits of being socially responsible. And then the references were put together in APA format. So great work. Yeah.
When I was researching about the company McDonald's, there are a lot of CSR initiatives. So I choose the water because for me it's the most important. So yeah. So I like this strategy to use the dry, don't use water in the washrooms, you know, to reduce the water consumption. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, great work. Yeah, thanks for volunteering and excellent presentation. Yeah, like it was a great job. Yeah, I'm very impressed with everybody so far. Like everybody's been so good at the presentations. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of them as well. So Arshdeep, I think he might be having trouble with his internet. So Gerson Gyat.
Yes, Professor.
Excellent. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. But yeah, great job, everybody. Everybody's doing so well. Very proud of you all.
May I start?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today I am going to present a presentation on Adidas. The overview of the Adidas. Adidas is a German multinational corporation. Is founded by Adolf Dassler on August 18, 1949. The headquarters of Adidas manufacture is in Herzogenaurach, Germany. The revenue of the Adidas market is near about 14.3 billion US dollars. The number of employees working in Adidas is 62,285. Adidas is the largest manufacturer of the sportswear in Europe and is the second largest company in the world. Adidas supply the product in 160 countries all over the world. Adidas also purchased 3 stripped trademark from the Finnish shoes brand, and in 2020, Adidas remained a constituent MSCI Global Sustainability Indices. The Adidas led the industry with the in sustainability as it produced the first sustainability report. To be continued with the second slide. And plastic waste and CSR initiative of Adidas. Adidas is currently working to protect the environment and resources through its programs and plastic waste. And under the initiatives, Adidas is also recycling the products made by polyesters, and sustainability cotton. And both products is 100% recycled. In 2020, 60% of the product was made by recycled polyester. Under the initiative, Adidas also produced 15 million shoes from recycled plastic waste, which was collected from the beaches of United States. Company is also developing plant based on leather. To support and plastic waste, Adidas has launched 5-year on game strategy in 2020-21. To be continued with the next slide, impact on initiatives of Adidas. Normally, impact can be analyzed through the triple bottom line introduced in 1994. For the people, provide clean environment, plastic-free, eco-friendly product made of recycled plastic and sustained cotton. Increase in jobs related plastic recycling. For the planet, will become free from plastic waste. Recycling of plastic is a pressure renewable resources, and for profit it increase the sale productivity and qualities. To be continued with the next slide, review of initiatives. CSR initiatives of Adidas is effective as it is having good impact on society by plastics free environment. Moreover, recycling of plastic and cotton will having a positive impact on customer. The initiative of CSR is related to sustainability, but it is considered as CSR activity because sustainability is a part of CSR. Today, the world is more focusing on preserving the non-renewable resources and saving these resource for future generation. And at the last slide, essential business cost benefits. Enhanced brand image and reputation. It will increase the reputation of Adidas as it is protecting environment and health of consumers and society at large. Innovation is always welcomed and beneficial by producing eco-friendly shoes and recycling the plastics. Motivated employees as working with eco-friendly and noble initiatives keep employee motivated and work with chill, and they also want to work with companies having CSR initiatives. Thank you.
Great work, very well researched. Yeah, you did a great job. I liked how much research you put into the project. Yeah, a lot of references, and you put a lot of work and time into it. Just the only thing is next time, the only feedback I have is next time, just if you can do a PowerPoint next time, then great. And then use more pictures, more visuals, just more like colors, more visuals, more pictures, and then yeah, like just that. But I love the research. I thought you did a great job with the research and the data and the statistics, and it was very well done.
Yeah.
Great work. Thanks, Chris and Gad. Great work. And is that how you pronounce your name?
Thank you.
Awesome. Sounds good. Great work. So Dalji, do you want to go, or do you want to wait until your week?
No, sir. I want to wait for a week.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I just want to check. But yeah, great job, everybody. So we'll do some more. So our Steve was supposed to go, but I think he may have had tech issues. So I'm gonna start this look at here. So for the look at everybody, which one do you want to do out of the choices?
You can choose, Professor.
Sure, sounds good. So we'll do, think out of the ones let's try Gold Quest, yeah. Yes. So here is the. Job saying. Excellent work. Good job. Great job, Face. Awesome work. Good job, Face. Great job, Face. Wow, that's great. Oh, great job. Great work. Yeah, good job. Great job, everybody. And then I'll put this in the chat too, my blog. I know I talked about it talked about it, I think, last week. I'll put it in the blog again. So yeah, if you're interested in learning, it's mostly about entrepreneurship. Whoa, great job. I'll be right back. You can keep going. Good job. Wow. Good job stealing money. Okay. Great job. Great job. Excellent steal. Great work, you two. That's great. Great job. Great job, everybody. Wow, you're doing so well. That's great. Great job, Thais. Wow. Excellent job. Yeah, you did great work. Wow. Killed it. Wow. Great job saying. Yeah, excellent job. I want to do that bucket because teaches a lot about entrepreneurship. It's good for, I think it's a good one for entrepreneurship because so you can learn about the benefits of being an entrepreneur. Like that blockhead shows the benefits of being an entrepreneur. And yeah, it's a great blockhead. So we'll watch a video on, we'll watch a video on this, and then I think we'll wrap it up for the day, but we'll watch this and then end early. We'll just put this on because this is going on the sustainable investing and being more of a marketing thing because they're accused of that happening. So
Environmental, social, and corporate governance, or ESG. These are the trendiest words in finance.
Supporters say that being ethical and being profitable need not be mutually exclusive, benefiting stakeholders, society, and the planet.
But critics argue that these products are not that different from other investments and complain that it can be hard to measure whether a company is actually doing the right thing. So is ESG just good branding?
The idea of investing based on a set of principles and not merely for profits is as old as the concept of investing itself. In the 18th century, Christian groups such as the Methodists and Quakers articulated this idea with clear guidelines to their followers, and it has been gaining ground ever since. The pressure to avoid giving capital to South African companies between the 1970s and 1990s is seen as a factor that contributed to the end of apartheid.
More recently, the impact of our day-to-day lives on the environment has been the center of attention, and that is affecting how investors allocate their money.
There's this increasing understanding in society that we need to care about the climate, about social conditions of employees. So this has shifted the focus also of the investment management industry. And second, the understanding based on academic research that if you integrate ESG factors, you can generate higher performance and lower risk.
This awareness has led fund managers to create financial products which invest in companies that meet their criteria of being ESG friendly. And more investors are adding ESG funds to their portfolios. The share of global investors that applied ESG criteria to at least a quarter of their total investments jumped from 48% in 2017 to 75% in 2019. In the US, professional investors are expected to expand their holdings of ESG assets from $12 trillion in 2018 to $35 trillion by 2025, or 50% of their total investments. These numbers were calculated before the coronavirus pandemic, but the health emergency could further accelerate this trend.
Has COVID in a way impacted this interest on ESG? Do you think it could actually make investors even more interested?
Absolutely, yes. It certainly served to elevate and really, put a spotlight on the way companies operate, this emphasis that we've been hearing about for some time, this idea of corporate purpose, intentionally contemplating the needs of a broad universe of stakeholders, broadening the aperture of how you think about enterprise risk, opportunity, disruptions that could compromise your ability to meet your strategic objectives. And COVID has certainly put that sort of set of considerations in the spotlight.
So how does an ESG fund actually work?
The principles of ESG are really an underpinning for how stocks are selected, looking at G, the governance of how the management of those companies works. Looking at the S has become incredibly important during the pandemic, thinking about how the company is interacting with all its stakeholders, including the communities it operates in and its employees. And then the environment and environmental policies and actions by companies. So really, it's become a much more thorough and integrated part of the evaluation of companies that get put into portfolios that become ESG funds.
The investment profiles of the world's 4 biggest ESG funds have changed over time. For instance, about a decade ago, they included substantial stakes in major oil firms. In 2007, the largest ESG fund had almost 13% of its total investments in companies such as Royal Dutch Shell, Total, and ExxonMobil. But this has fallen in the years since, and the share of oil companies featured in this particular ESG fund's holdings has shrunk to less than 3% as of July 2020. But how can funds that claim to promote sustainability ever support oil firms, which are widely seen as responsible for soaring levels of pollution?
When you think about the composition of ESG funds, it's first of all important to remember they are still meant to be a fund invested to get a return for the portfolio. And so they can tilt based on industry groups, based on sector views, and that may or may not relate to an ESG view.
Ultimately, ESG funds, like all other investments, are meant to generate profits. In fact, ESG funds have slightly outperformed other funds over the last 2 years, at least in part thanks to their holding of tech stocks, which have rallied strongly. But the portfolio manager told us investors need to think about returns in the long term.
As a believer of ESG as a firm, I like to read all these articles, but I think it's a bit of a bias in terms of the analysis, simply because these ESG products, they had lower energy exposure, and the energy sector was hardly hit this year because of COVID. On the other side, many of the tech companies, they get a high ESG score because they had already in place, working from home policy. They're more keen in terms of, taking care of their employees because that's what they have, right? All these tech companies. So they score high.
Since 2010, the fourth largest ESG fund in the world has increased its exposure to tech giants from about 8% to more than 17% within a decade. Online retail giant Amazon was one of these big tech firms seen as ESG friendly, even though the company registered a carbon footprint of over 50 million metric tons of CO2 in 2019. And with emissions rising by 15% compared to the previous year, the environmental concerns aren't going away.
We don't have clear standards on what is good, what is bad in terms of ESG, which also means that for kind of investors into these funds, they need to look carefully at how they define it. So if you take Amazon as an example, there may be one fund that says they're doing a fantastic job in terms of ESG, and another one may say, well, we disagree. But because there are not these obvious standards, you see even in high ESG funds, very different portfolio shares of firms like Amazon.
In the case of Amazon, its commitment to reduce its carbon emissions and become carbon neutral by 2040 is seen by some asset managers as a reason why the stock meets the definition of being ESG friendly.
We could look at companies and say your carbon footprint today is not satisfactory. The old way that investors addressed that was often by taking their money out of those companies. Today, divestment isn't seen as the optimum way to push for change. Engagement and stewardship by investing and asking for a clear timeline for improvements in things like carbon footprints is a much more, we'll call it a 2.0 way of thinking about using capital in the ESG space.
These subjective judgments give rise to another criticism level that ESG investing. It often lacks transparency.
We look at a company level at about just over 1,000 different data points. And when I say 1,000 different data points, this is what we really look for companies to publish. Now, what we observe is that companies don't publish all of those data points, and actually how much of that data is published in itself tells us a number of important insights into how companies implement ESG.
Do you care about a carbon footprint of a particular company?
Absolutely. So the carbon footprint comes actually in at several levels, because one of the things we are very conscious of is that people can, or companies can, very much hide their carbon footprint by outsourcing certain parts of their production process to other companies or other jurisdictions. And that in itself is not a good sign and not a good thing.
Organizations such as the United Nations and the European Commission are promoting common standards to address these concerns.
At the moment, some feel there's not enough disclosure from fund managers about why their products should be considered ESG friendly. Investors may also need to do some more background work to ensure they're putting their money in funds that meet their ethical objectives. And this is where further regulation could add some more clarity.
We've largely seen the regulatory momentum taking place in Europe. We're starting to see some momentum in the US, but I do think that US companies, absent regulation, are not waiting. And I think companies certainly see that there are broader global trends, there's opportunity. This is not going to be just a compliance exercise.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. Would you invest in an ESG fund? Let us know in the comment section.
This is a good video because it goes through a lot of what is, a lot of what we've been saying in terms of what companies do with CSR. So yeah, it shows you how these companies, like what they do with CSR. And they usually use it as a profitability thing. So, and it's not really used to benefit people, it's more for profitability. just want to show you some of the companies that I invest in. Yeah, if you ever want to get into investing, here, I'll put this in the chat. So, like I'm in Amazon, Bank of Montreal, CN Rail, CP Rail, Royal Bank of Canada, Tesla, TD, Voyager Digital. It's a company in the crypto market, WiseKey, in crypto as well. And then Bitcoin Fund, Currency Works, Ether Fund, Hall of Fame Entertainment, Ideanomics, Imaginaire, iMining, IntelliBridge, Liquid Media Group, and Mobilium. So all of those in the crypto market, I just want to show you because these are the investments that I'm in, and you may, like, if you're interested in getting into investing, let me know. So I'm going to show you what you can make if you hold a diversified portfolio of all these companies, and it goes up by 30% per year with, and let's say you start with a $10,000 investment. This is how it would grow. It would grow like this over the years. So go from starting at 10,000 to getting to over $26 million. And this is how, if you hodled, so if you don't sell, you buy these companies, railroads, banks, crypto technology, and you just keep it in, making 30% per year. You would make $26 million in over 30 years off of the $10,000 investment. And this is done through never selling investments, hodling them. You also have to diversify your portfolio by owning investments over many sectors and industries, and you can make a total fortune from this. So if you want to talk more about this, just let me know. Put in the chat. But yeah, if you need support on this, you can make some real gains through that. And then Elon Musk is another good example. So Elon has increased his wealth by hundreds of times since 2012. And this is it's similar to the chart I showed you with the model I ran. So he went from, so he's worth over $300 billion now. And that's through hard work and also never selling stock. His investment portfolio is Tesla, SpaceX, the Boring Company, and Neuralink. And 99% of his pay is in ownership, and that's why he's earning that much. And he's never sold stock in his companies except for recently. And that's why he's been so wealthy that he's never panic sells, and that's why it's beneficial. And he holds a diverse portfolio of companies in space, cars, crypto, energy, artificial intelligence, electrification. So if you hodl, never sell with companies across many different sectors and industries such as banks, railroads, and technology and crypto, you'll be like Elon Musk. So that's a good lesson there. As well, so like when I was in school, I want to let you know that I was only taught to be an employee, and I thought being an employee was the only option based on the education system. And I found out that schools are missing the entrepreneurship view, and that's why I want to teach students about entrepreneurship. And you can start your own business, and that suits you. That suits a lot of people better than being an employee. And then you can make all of the money above the wages you pay your workers. So there's a good quote from CNBC. The 99% of taxpayers making less than $500,000 a year, salaries and wages account for 75% of their adjusted gross income for 2012, the latest period available from Internal Revenue Service returns. Of the remaining income, about half came from retirement programs such as pensions, annuities, and individual retirement accounts. For taxpayers making $500,000 to $1 million, salaries and wages account for more than half of earnings. But for those making $10 million or more, salaries and wages only account for 15% of their income. The real money comes from capital gains, with capital gains accounting for half their earnings. Another 15% to 20% come from interest and dividends, and about 25% of their income comes from business income, which they own stake in a private company. So yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to send this to the class right now. I'll just send it as an email to the whole class because it's a good message and it's good for the class. Yeah. So. So I send this to the class. Yeah, so like definitely, like if you think of just send it around, and it's really beneficial. Yeah, so send it around and just yeah. I sent it. I'm gonna send it to my other section as well. But so I think we'll end it for today. Do you have any other questions for tonight, everybody?
No, Professor. Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, great job, you two. Thanks for sticking around, and excellent job with presentations. You both did a great job, and thanks for sticking around, and have a great weekend.
You too, Professor. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, Professor.
Yeah, great work, and take a break. Yeah, great work, and take a break this weekend. Yeah, take care. Take care, Gerson.